In Operation Black Buck, 55 Squadron was combined with 57 Squadron, detached to Ascension Island, with the prime purpose of refueling the Vulcan aircraft that was going to bomb Port Stanley. But before any of that started, we engaged in maritime radar reconnaissance in the area around the Falkland Islands and South Georgia to help clear the way for our Navy so that it was safe for them to re-invade firstly South Georgia. And it was during that time that we flew the longest flight that's ever been achieved in a Victor of some 14 hours and 45 minutes. Following on from those maritime radar reconnaissance missions, we were of course also refueling Nimrods doing maritime work around there, but the thing that caught the public eye most of all, of course, was the Vulcan bombing missions. These of course were incredibly complicated. It's some 4,000 miles each way from Ascension to the Falkland Islands, and the range of a Vulcan is nowhere near sufficient to get down there and back without refueling. When you start working out how you're going to go about refueling a Vulcan, to do that, it transpires that you need an enormous number of tankers, because one of the prime safety requirements is that you aim never to put the aircraft in a position from which it would be unable to reach land or an airfield if the refueling for some reason failed. Because of that, instead of doing 2 or 3 refuelings, sufficient just to pass 2 or 3 large amounts of fuel in one go, you actually have to do lots and lots of refuelings to keep the aircraft topped up all the way down the route so that it can get back at any point. The long and the short of it was that we took off late one night for the first mission with some 13 aircraft in RT silence, and that included 1 spare Vulcan and 1 spare Victor tanker. And that was sufficient to get the Vulcan to bomb Port Stanley and for it to get back to a position at Beam, Brazil. And we then launched a subsequent wave of some 6 or so aircraft, refueling one another to go and meet the Vulcan at Beam, Brazil. So the mechanics of the operation were incredibly complicated, and all in all something like 19 aircraft were launched to get 1 bomb on the runway at Port Stanley. There were complications in the initial sorties in that the Vulcan fuel burn rate as passed to the men doing all of this complicated planning was not quite accurate, and it was in fact shown to be burning more when we came to do the actual mission. This meant of course that each tanker that was refueling it had to give it somewhat more fuel than had been planned, and by the time you got to the far end of the chain, the very last tanker that was going to give him fuel did not have enough to both give the Vulcan all the fuel it needed and for itself to get back to Ascension Island. So they gave the Vulcan all the fuel they could to allow the Vulcan to do its mission and proceed to the RV at Beam, Brazil, and they then turned around knowing that they had not enough fuel to get back to Ascension Island. But of course they couldn't tell anybody about this until the Vulcan had completed his bomb run and got out of range of Ascension Island, at which time the Victor then was able to get on the HF radio and call up Ascension Island saying, "I need more fuel. If you don't manage to get another tanker airborne, things are going to go fairly quiet around here before we get to Ascension Island." Subsequently, of course, things became slightly better managed and we didn't end up in any situations quite as dramatic as that. But the captain of that aircraft was awarded the Air Force Cross, and the crew members all received awards from the Queen. Of course, when all of this was over, the Squadron 2 received its own award in that 55 Squadron was awarded the Battle Honours for the South Atlantic, in common with many other units of the time. Well, during the Gulf War, we had the opportunity, of course, to put into practice all those things for which we'd been training in peacetime. We refueled a huge variety of different aircraft, both our own RAF aircraft and other Allied forces, including the Americans, the French and the Saudis. We refueled all types of aircraft, primarily our Tornado GR1s going off on bombing missions into Iraq, but also our Jaguars, who were tasked in and around the Kuwait theatre of operations, and our own air defence aircraft. We're also refuelling the Saudi Tornado F-3 air defence aircraft and a considerable number of American Navy aircraft which have compatible refueling systems to our own. The squadron had a very good record in the Gulf War. We were tasked with 299 sorties and achieved all 299, 100% success rate. Now, of course, we find ourselves out in the Gulf again. The Tornado GR1s are tasked on reconnaissance missions into southern Iraq on a more or less daily basis, and 55 Squadron is based in Bahrain, where we're flying out of Bahrain in support of those Tornadoes, again on a daily basis. Well, the Victor is now an old aircraft. If you think back some 35, 40 years or more, beyond the end of the Second World War, the technology of the day was piston engine bombers, but of course by then Whittle and others had invented the jet engine, so the air staff of the day let a requirement to build a long-range strategic bomber that would be able to carry the nuclear weapon. Cash perhaps wasn't quite so tight in those days, so following the requirement being put out to the several aircraft companies then in operation in UK, we actually decided to build 3 V-bombers, the Valiant, the Vulcan and the Victor, and they all came into service in the late 50s. As time went by, of course, the strategic nuclear deterrent role was handed over to the Royal Navy, so we no longer needed our V-bombers to drop the blue steel in that kind of strategic nuclear role. They moved into low-level bombing and to conventional bombing, although they still had a nuclear role, and were variously converted into tankers. In fact, all 3 types at some stage or another became tankers. The Victor was converted initially into a K-1 tanker from the B-1 bomber, and the K-2 tanker was derived from the B-2 bomber, and we took delivery of the K-2s in around 1975. So why is it going back out of service, to answer your question? Well, it's old. It's expensive to maintain its old technology. It's almost impossible to get some of the spare parts now. And of course, I suppose primarily because it's run out of fatigue. When you design an aircraft, a military aircraft, most of them have a finite life, and that life is equated to 100 fatigue indexes. So you start out when your airplane is delivered and it's going to fly for several thousand hours, however many thousand hours, and you will along the way consume fatigue. You can measure this by having a fatigue meter installed in the aircraft. It's related to several factors: the weight at which you took off, how turbulent was it today, how fast did you go, what exactly did you do with the aircraft while you flew it. The end result of it is that you will be able to calculate that you used so much fatigue, which you can knock off however many fatigue indexes you started that trip with. The Victor now, of course, has used all of the 100 it was designed with, and during the course of its life, the fatigue life has been extended to 128, or now 130 FI, the abbreviation for fatigue index. All of our aircraft now are in the near the end of that figure, so it would be prohibitively expensive to keep them running because all sorts of inspections and additional work, major work, would need to be done on the airframes. So the long and the short of it is there are very few flying hours left. It's perhaps a surprising tribute to the soundness of the original design that we are still flying the aircraft at all in 1993. Certainly nobody ever envisaged that it would be flying in 1993 when the first flight took place in 1954. And here we stand as the squadron operating the last V-bomber of them all. The Victor outlived both the Valiant and the Vulcan. But although a sentimental topic for some, You know, this is the way that all aircraft go. It has a proud history, as does the squadron, and we can look back on it all with a degree of pride and perhaps a certain amount of nostalgia.
Rolling. Okay, engine's good, both ASIs are indicating. ...100 knots. Final 3 knots of stop. Precision. Okay. Yeah, resurrected. So you're from Charlie? Charles 200, 150.
Starting at the left hand side then, we've got the IFF interrogator, which will give us an air-to-air range of us from another aircraft, provided we know what identification squawk it's wearing. Select the squawk mode over here, and that's your squawk itself there, and we get a split range anywhere between 0 and 100 miles. It'll also give us some indication of whether it's in front or behind, and whether it's slightly left or slightly right of the aircraft nose. This is the radar, which we use for terrain clearance, anywhere between 0 and 50,000 feet. We've also got the radar, which here, the H2S. That's got a range up to 184 miles. It's a ground mapping radar with a limited air-to-air capability. It's also got some weather capability as well, so we can look at cloud and see whether or not that's going to cause any problems for us. Associated with that, we've got the nav bombing computer here, the nav panel, which gives us a latitude and longitude, our position. In addition to that, it'll give us a track we're flying, and either a true airspeed or a ground speed we're flying, and we've got a wind here that we set for the system. We can either set that manually or automatically. Also, we've got this is the 585 unit, which we use for fixing the equipment. We also set the height of the aircraft on this dial here, and we can use something called an internal aids approaching the aircraft, where vectors that we set on these dials here allow us to carry out an approach at an airfield, setting various ranges from the airfield. Got the periscope for looking out at the back of the aircraft, so we can actually see what the other aircraft are doing when they're behind us during refuelling. Normally when we're in flight, that's in that position there, and we can pan from left to right, from under one wing to the other wing on the side of the aircraft. Omega navigation system. This is a self-fixing aid, normally accurate to within 1 or 2 miles during the day and about 2 to 4 miles at night, but there are problems associated with that. This is the primary piece of kit that we normally fly with. And the ground position indicator here, which gives us a latitude and longitude, also gives us a heading and a track on there, and that's fed by ground speed from the Doppler system over here, the green satin, gives us ground speed and drift. In addition, it gets a feed of TAS from the TAS unit up here. On the large dials in the centre there, we've got the indicated airspeed that we're flying at the moment. We've also got an altimeter, we've got UDF there for bearings from beacons, a fuel totalizer, compass, the radio compass for actually getting the bearing off another aircraft that's transmitting, and a TACAN. And that just about sums up the nav quit.
Okay, my panel overlaps slightly with the navigators, with the RWR controls which are here and the indicator which is there. I have the number 2 VUHF box in front of me there, and going up to the top of the panel, the main controls for the IFF. Coming further around, I've got an HF control, and then coming down onto the main electrical panel, I've got the controls for the AAPP, which is an R2 jet engine to give electrical power, and air supplies for starting the engine. And I've got the ram air turbines, which are emergency turbines for running the flying controls, should there be the unfortunate incident of losing all 4 engines in the air. Onto the main electrical panel then, there are 4 engine-driven generators coming down to the 28 volts at the bottom, split port and starboard. Coming over onto the other side, there's the special feeder indicators there, and the intercom switches, and the main DC fuse panel down here. Special feeder switches, which are the isolation switches for the aeroplane, are down here. And then we come to the refueling equipment. This is the pounds gone indicators over here, and on the left here are the two pod control switches, and above those the main hose drum unit for refueling large aircraft.
My job as captain of the aircraft is to use the experience and knowledge of the other crew members and coordinate their efforts to ensure the safe and efficient operation of the aircraft on any sorties we're tasked to. In addition, I'll share the flying duties and monitoring of the aircraft instruments and systems with the co-pilot.
Once I'm strapped in, I'll be checking my side of the instrument panel and also the fuel tray, which we've got here. And then when the rest of the crew have also completed their pre-flight checks, then we'd go into starting the engines. There's a crew chief outside who would monitor the engines and look for signs of fire. And they've got other crews out there who would put the fire out. There's a fire extinguisher out there. During a flight, there's a non-flying pilot and a flying pilot. That can be either captain or the co-pilot. The flying pilot would be the person who controls receiving aircraft and actually has the hands-on flying of the aircraft. He'll take it off, land, etc. The non-flying pilot would monitor the engine instruments and also work the fuel tray, which we have here, which is quite complicated, but it's okay once you get to know it. When we're taking on fuel from another receiver, like a Victor, for instance, the captain would be prodding. He would make contact and flying it, and the co-pilot's duties would be to monitor the engines and also put the fuel as it's coming in through the hoses into the correct position to maintain the centre of gravity throughout the aircraft.
Well, basically our prime role is depending on where the aircraft is. If we're due to land away somewhere, then we'll fly with the aircraft away from base and assume the engineering authority while we're away. We should supervise the crew carrying out flight servicings when we're away. Any maintenance work that we can do, then we'll sort that out while we're there. We do carry a spares pack-up that we can utilise if necessary. Only minor work, obviously, that we can take in. Refuels, which the crew also carry out. We just make sure that all the maintenance documents are compiled correctly. And basically, while we're away, that's our prime purpose. Back home, we're looking after most of the paperwork regarding the aircraft, Form 700, various maintenance documents, forecast of spares and items that are due for replacement in the near future. And we have to do various checks on the aircraft before the crew take it and after we've seen the aircraft in. After the aircraft has been serviced by the boys after flight, before flight servicing has been carried out, we have to complete a set of crew chief checks before the crew arrive to take the aircraft flying. Basically, it's a double check to make sure that all panels are refitted, bungs and blanks are removed, pressures are correct. We start with an external walk-round check, going through all the points on the aircraft where bungs and blanks are fitted, and checking any pressure gauges that are immediately apparent without undoing any panels to disrupt anybody else's servicing. We complete a full external walk-round check, noting any leaks or problems that we can rectify quickly before the crew arrive to take the aircraft. Inside, we fit all the pins into the rear crew seats, which have been removed purely for safety reasons, and do a check of the major switches to make sure that things are in the right position before power is applied to the aircraft. Again, pressures, ejection seats, that pins are fitted correctly, and that all the controls are in the positions they should be before power and hydraulics are applied. When the crew come down to accept the aircraft for flight, they come in here first, where they complete the aircraft documents and sign for the aircraft in the 700. Myself and 3 ground crew go out with the crew to the aircraft. The crew do their walk round and the boys prep the aircraft ready for flight. They run the ground power out. Once the brakes are fitted, they'll take the chocks out. And they're generally available if I need them when I'm talking to the crew on the long lead if we get a problem. Once the crew climb into the aircraft, I go inside, usually behind the pilot and the co-pilot, and assist them with their strapping in. Get directions from the pilot, which way he's going to be turning after he's got engines running, how long his sortie length is liable to be. We then climb out and I put my headset connect up to my long lead, and then go down the back of the aircraft waiting for the calls from the crew on their checks to the various points they're doing. They go through their complete internal checks, the phase 1s first. Then we come on to the phase 2 checks, where I become involved about part way down the list. The first time that we are involved is where they switch on the PFCUs. They switch on odd PFCU motors first. There's a double motor to each PFCU, so they check half of them first time to make sure the controls move individually. So on the Victor, we've got the rudder will go first, port and starboard neutral, elevators the same, and there's a check while we make sure the ailerons are clear. Then we check the ailerons, port up, starboard down, etc. Then they change, the PFCU switch off and switch the odd motors on, and then we go through the same routine again, checking the rudder, the elevators, and finally the ailerons. Once that's completed, they will operate the air brakes. The hydraulic pumps are switched on now in either emergency or normal, but it's switched on in a certain set procedure so that the hydraulic pumps, both pumps are checked in normal and emergency for all different operations. For example, the air brakes are operated one way, then they're closed halfway, then fully closed. Then we go on to the flaps, which are all hydraulically operated. Flaps selected to take off, fully down, back to take off. At the same time, we check the AAPP scoop is operable, fully open and fully closed. After the AAP scoop is checked and fully open, I move around to the other side of the aircraft. As I'm walking towards the front now, the AEO will ask me if the pods are in the correct positions with the hose-in light showing and the lights are operating correctly. I confirm that, and then the ladder is removed and the door is closed from the inside. The crew will call door closed, stops a butt, and my response on the outside is door closed, handle flush. I walk to the front of the aircraft now, and I find that we're now about ready for engine starts. The crew will ask for pitot heater check, which points the two guys will go out and just feel the ends of the pitot heads to make sure that the heaters are actually working. And then we're up to AAPP start. Initiated by the AEO from the rear position in the aircraft. He was selected to start. The APP runs up, and then is selected to elect. Once the APP is fully running, and we're ready for full engine starts. Normally we start from the left on 1, 2, 3 and 4. Occasionally things don't go according to plan, and we can combust the engines. We've got a rapid start facility on numbers 1 and 2, which is no longer available on the 3 and 4 engines, so it's been taken out. But if we need to get them going in a hurry, then we can start 1 and 2 simultaneously, cross-feed over to 3 and 4 with a high RPM on 1 and 2. Once all engines are running, the guys know which way the aircraft's going to taxi out. I just curl in the lead and then just wait for further instructions from the crew. Then I'll either hang on until they're ready to move, in which case they will tell me to make sure chocks are out, disconnect external intercom, or they may have to hold for a while, in which case I will stay online in case they get a problem. Once I've disconnected, I back away and give the pilot a thumbs up on the port side, and just generally have a quick look around underneath to make sure there's nothing being left, chocks or blanks, and then clear off out of the way and let the boys marshal him out and send him on his way.
Well, yesterday's sortie was a receiver training exercise for a Victor captain in the left-hand seat, and it was his second sortie at learning how to prod the Victor. And for this particular trip we needed 2 Victors, one as a target tanker and ourselves in the rear aircraft doing the prodding. The 2 crews come into plan some 2 hours before takeoff, so we came in yesterday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a 4 o'clock takeoff. And we all gather in the main briefing room at Marham and do our various individual bits before gathering together as 2 crews to run through a pre-flight brief. The sort of things that the pilots are doing is working out the fuel plan, looking at diversions, checking the weather, checking the danger area boards and checking royal flights. The navigators dealing with the navigational aspects of the sortie, obviously, and the AOs dealing with the communication side of things. After about half an hour's planning, the 2 crews get together and have their pre-flight brief covering all aspects of the sortie. And in particular on a sortie like this, the snake climb is briefed. Now this is a type of climb where one victor gets on the runway and takes off 1 minute ahead of the second victor, which enables the two victors to get to top of climb in somewhere in the same part of the sky, so that we can join up fairly quickly thereafter and get on with the training exercise. After we've done our planning, we normally go and get changed, have a quick bite to eat, and then out to the aircraft. The weather yesterday was very good for both in the circuit and at altitude for the exercise, so we didn't have much of a problem at all with high-level cloud. We climbed up to 24,000 feet. That's the lead tanker that climbed to 24,000 feet, and the number 2 tanker, with ourselves on board, climbed to 23,000 feet until we were in good visual contact with the other aircraft. Then we pulled up and to his level, moved into close formation and waited for him to trail his hose. Once he got his centerline hose out, he cleared us astern, and we moved astern the number 1 tanker, got ourselves sorted out. I then took control and demonstrated a couple of approaches to contact and contact on the tanker. I also got the captain to follow me through on the controls to feel the effects and to see the control movements that are required. Broke contact, moved back to about 20 feet behind the basket, and then gave him control to have a go himself, with me following fairly closely through on the controls. It was his second sortie. He had made 4 or 5 successful contacts on the previous sortie, so this was really a chance to consolidate on what he'd done on the second sortie. And he was coping very well. It was generally smooth approaches and smooth contacts, and all very nice and safe and tidy. Throughout the receiver training, he made about 14 good contacts, and that took about an hour of flying time. Once we'd finished with that, we turned back towards base. The 2 aircraft split up for the descent because it's easier to come down individually than in formation, and we made an instrument recovery. In fact, it was a azimuth-only precision approach radar to runway 06 at Tamaram, and landed off the first approach.
4 miles, 1,200 feet, Spartan 2, land stream. Spartan 2, clear to land, 1 in. Turn left 3 degrees, heading 0, correction, 2 degrees, heading 060. 3.5 miles, 1,050 feet.
Just about on the glide path, 1,000 feet, 1017.
Clear to land with 1 in, surface wind is 36012.
9 feet off the brakes.
Slightly left of centre line, correcting slowly, heading 060. 3 miles, 900 feet.
On the glide path.
Slightly left of centre line, correcting nicely.
She's giving us heights to pass.
2.5 miles, 750 feet. Turn left 2 degrees, heading 058 on centre line.
Just about on the glide path.
Heading 058. Turn left 2 degrees, heading 056, slightly right of centre line at 2 miles, 600 feet.
200 feet to
Slightly right of centre line, correcting slowly, heading 056. 3/4 miles. Turn right 2 degrees, heading 058.
Okay, and
On centre line, 1.5 miles, 450 feet, approaching missed approach point.
First part looks up and takes the approach.
1.25 miles, slightly right of centre line, correcting slowly, heading 058. 1 mile, 300 feet, passing missed approach points. Turn left 2 degrees, slightly right of centre line, 3/4 mile.
A little bit high.
Slightly right, correcting, 1/2 mile. On centre line.
Soak up this. Soak up.
1/4 mile. Over touchdown.
Nice stick.
Spartan 2 on the runway to town.
And on the stream, good shoot. Pressures are good. And we've got 6,000
How's Spartan 2 for it?
Spartan 2, good shoot, drop and ready.
Pressures are good.
Spartan 1 is late downwind to roll.
5,000.
Spartan, roger, surface wind northerly 10 knots.
Spartan 1.
Take the chute clear, okay?
Is it possible to take the chute clear?
Yeah, we'll do it. 4,000 feet. To go. Pressures are good.
You're already up front.
Marty. And Spartan 2 is on the runway from it.
Roger.
3,000 feet. A little bit power on the impulse now to keep the chute deployed as we go around the corner.
Okay, we're clearing next left.
Understood.
Spartan 1 is finals with a good out.
Spartan 1, continue.
Still no Spartan 1 on the left.
Absolutely. Well, we won't get it now, so I'll fix that up. So we'll keep the impulse up about 70, that'll keep the chute deployed a little bit. Just keep it full so it doesn't bang around a little. Can't do runway again.
Spartan 1, clear to roll.
88. Straight ship rolling.
Alright, rolling. Clarify 2 visual join.
2 mile down, join runway 24, QFB 1015, 1 arm departing.
4015,
Good
public
airspeed
line.
base. Follow me through. There's 100 knots. You have control. Decision. Rotate.
Tiger 48 is airborne, step 15.
Safety folder. Selected. Travels. Even cruise power.
Well, approach Quebec 1 Tango 48 is airborne, standby checks.
Quebec 1 Tango 48, Georgia, identified road advisory.
48.
Cruise power. Gear up. Speed split. Speed split. Selected. Up indicating. So, 3 miles right turn. 050.
Contact load.
I'll take the offset.
Landing gear.
Up lights out.
Flaps.
Up indicating.
Triple control.
Cruise.
Cabin arrivals.
180.
1 Europe.
In.
Accelerometer.
Reset.
Autopilot gyros.
In on ready for use.
2 pumpers off. Paddle to last both out. Fuel switcher.
Filling.
Central reservoirs are open. The bomb bay heating is the raw. 2 general chips for you, man. Only below 250 knots.
Yeah, no, hold on, this is doing speed back. Okay, 13 around, please.
React.
Speed's good. For 6 and anti-icing on, please.
48 tomorrow, climb initially, flight level 100, you have traffic northwest, 10 miles heading east, not below 110.
100, 4.
Copy. Well, take it off a bit. Yeah, that was a good idea at the time.
Scoop.
Alright, ready to climb up what level 225, and you can turn left over navigation when you wish.
225, thank you very much.
Okay, come left 355 initially.
Right, coming left, 355.
Cruise power is good.
Take off for it.
Top. Like I say, down north of you. It's in the rain tomorrow. Why, what's happening tomorrow? It's raining apparently.
Raining apparently, yeah. Tiger 48.
Go ahead.
Got any reports of weather, medium level cloud 130 on area 8 from Scottish Tip?
We're check for you. Get back to you.
Okay, thanks very much. We're looking for cloud around about the 130 level and also around about just by 180.
Okay.
Is Jack's call sign 70?
71.
71. What time are you up there, Al?
We'll be at the bottom end at 12 minutes past.
So.
That's all from there, isn't it?
No, we've got to get to the datum at 25. We want to be early because look at the weather. It won't be early to make up for last night. Okay, that sort of evens things out a bit, see? So I take it the first are the Zircon, and then driver will be the GR7. Yep. Correct again. I'm getting good at this, so I have to give it up.
Just zip through some pre-tankers and then hold the hoses till we get established.
Okay. Hey, confirm it's 3 aircraft in the flight or 4?
As you say, there's no aeroplanes to take from one over here.
10 to 13.
I wonder if that's Zircon.
Well, they're meant towards Mike Charlie 6.
They're going the other way, aren't they?
Are they? Are they coming out of Mike Charlie 6? I thought our boys were going to go up to Scotland and come back to us before going back to Germany.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Microphone, please. Number 5, you switch your microphone off. Zircon 1, correct 1 Tango 480.
Zircon 1 on guard, we're giving you loud and clear.
And Eastern Zircon 1, the reading on guard.
Understand, Zircon 1 is reading me on guard.
Excellent.
Roger. Zircon 1 Eastern radar on guard, turn right, heading 130.
Right, 130, Zircon 1.
Zircon 1, if you try to recontact me, please, 131.22.
131.22. Backing off.
In the underbrake.
Just so we like my airplane, it'd be easier.
Alright, switch up back just a little bit and up a little bit.
Half a little bit, okay.
Houston 1904. Right, hold it there.
How far east did we go with that GR1 then?
You went, you went to about
Correct 1 Tango 480 Eastern, no bootlickers at the moment.
Roger, we'll give it another 10 minutes and then we'll RTB with I think I found.
Roger.
About 120 miles off the coast at the most.
Houston Tango 48 is leveling 200.
Tango 48.
Tango 48 is now picked them up below, we'll take up information.
Alright, roger, radar station.
Okay, we play the default just in a minute.
Still snoring. 4,000 feet. No.
Okay. I'll sort of take down to the centre line now.
There's a weather here.
Shoot it there.
Passing 3,000 feet on the back. No.
One's there.
No. EOT lights up. Yep. I'll indicate to level now.
April? Page 15. Give me 83s, please.
83.
1 degree starboard left. Thank you.
Tango 48, leveling 1,600 feet.
You're right, roger.
Okay, as part of the continuing drill then I'll go to select the flap.
Okay.
Select it. Nothing happens.
Oh, no. This is part of the practice.
Yeah.
In that case, the pump is off. Your next selection will be, I will select the pump to normal, you will select emergency. You tell me to switch the pump on, and then select.
Okay, Code, I'd like to simulate then switching emergency flap to take off only.
Roger, simulated switching to just warm out. Let's go with this bloody mist as well.
Okay, switching now, pump on please.
Okay, pump is now on.
Nothing happening. Up 2 please.
85. Pump is off. I will also check the circuit breakers, so there's nothing
Up
happening
3.
on emergency. 88.
Down 2. Okay, so it looks like we've got no flap. The flap approach pattern is 172.
Circuit breakers are checked behind you and they are made.
Thank you.
Indicating a massive hydraulic leak somewhere.
Range 11. Down one, please. 85. Okay, we'll tear out the jaw there. I think we've achieved what we need to.
Okay, both pumps going back on. And both idling.
Thanks. Right, Al, can you give me heights I should be going through on a 2.5 degree glide path?
Yeah, okay.
We'll do a localizer only approach, good visual there.
VHS complete.
We'll take the checks as well, please.
Alright, 2 minutes. Roger, the pumps, both at normal landing gear.
That's two guns.
Flaps.
Up indicator.
Tomorrow today, contact talk down, stop 13. Stop 13, thank you. Okay, oil pressures. Sorry?
Normal.
Fuel state.
32.
Landing ramps.
Land.
JPT control.
Take off.
Scoopers open, Saturn will go off. And yeah, that's check's complete. Talk down, this is Quebec 1 Tango 48, but it...
1 Tango 48, I'm talk down identified, bring back QFE set.
1013.
1013 is set.
48, new QFE 1012, report glide path descending, gear down.
Up to 37.
Roger, 1012 is set.
90. Okay, if you can call me the glide path as we're approaching, please, down to
7.5 miles descending at 6.
Can you tell me that we're doing a 2.5 degree glide path, please, for his monitor?
3 green, centre's set, right toe's clear, up 2.
Right toes are clear, up 2 you got. Yeah, keep the turn coming.
Off a further 2.
You got that 88's across there. You got the runway?
Yep.
Keep it coming.
Down 2.
Count 5.
78.
Slow cut.
Slow cut.
Your stick.
My stick.
And streaming. Shoot a point.
Great.
Good shoot.
Good shoot.
5 to go. I think we're going with this day delay marker boards at the end of the runway, is it?
48, we'll stand 23.
23, 48.
Or they just recovered them so they're bright? Certainly Tango 48.
Put a nozzle something else, eh?
Go ahead.
Taxiing in for 23.
Roger, transport should be up there.
Test is good.
I'm just going to drop my sheet on the threshold here just before the turn.
Roger.
Then I'll be a star of stage and screen.
Indeed. You sure it's your best side?
He's sitting on it.
It's all around him.
What are you going to call it? 31k in about?
I was going to call it 30 at shutdown.
30 or 30?